let's talk about Mr. Blue Eyes. Okay, look, I already did a video about him, how I think he is a rogue AI. Now, I'm not really going away from that. That's something I personally believe, is that Mr. Blue Eyes is some sort of rogue AI entity. He could be a rabbit for all we know. I'd want him to be a rabbit because then that would bring in Raish Bartmas as a bad guy. That'd be completely awesome. Anyways, I did a little bit more reading and there was a dude commenting, talking about, can we get an explanation for the ending? I think it's the sun ending in particular, where V is sent to do something in the Crystal Palace and then it cuts. Of course, in this ending, we have Mr. Blue Eyes actually giving us the gig. So then the question is, why and what did they actually want from the Crystal Palace? Now, let's talk briefly about what and who controls the Crystal Palace. If we look into the source book, the Deep Space Guide source book thing, I'm gonna put a picture because I forgot the name. Anyways, in this source book, if we read, we can find that the ESA actually controls about 65% of all the orbital platforms, or all the assets in, orbit of Earth. So about 65%. Which is pretty big, and they actually control the Crystal Palace. Now it is up to them. They kind of sell rooms in there to the highest bidder, so whoever can pay them the most gets a spot in the Crystal Palace, kind of like how this rich guy and Richard Branson are able to go into space, and we normal civilians of this planet are probably never gonna get to go in the shuttle. Anyways, I digress. So the ESA is the one that controls the Crystal Palace. And so then this puts us in a peculiar situation. Does this mean Mr. Blue Eyes has something against the ESA? And so I did a little bit more digging. You guys remember in the Corpo intro where we have Jenkins watching the ESA, or sorry, it says ESC, so the European Space Council. It's the same thing. Google it, they're literally the same entity. Anyways, you see Jenkins watching these ESC board members get electrocuted, and he is speaking to someone. Now, I know it's a long shot, but what if it's Mr. Blue Eyes? And why do I think that this is a possibility? Well, we know Mr. Blue Eyes is scummy, but now we have a little bit more background info. He clearly wants to go after the Crystal Palace. And we know that the Crystal Palace is owned or run by the ESC. So then what if Arasaka and Mr. Blue Eyes are working together? What are your thoughts on that? Is Arasaka, Mr. Blue Eyes, are they a thing? Are they working together? Or maybe it was just something that was in the best interest for both parties. Regardless, I am able to kind of piece together that particular thing, is that Mr. Blue Eyes appears to have something against the ESA. So as a rogue AI, what does this mean? Well, if he is a rogue AI, and I still believe he is, all this means is he's trying to gain, or they're trying to gain control of other assets that maybe humans are not thinking about. So this allows them to have control of Crystal Palace. And if they're able to, disrupt ESA's control over 65% of all the assets that is orbiting Earth, then it is possible that maybe they can send some signals, start hacking everybody on Earth. Again, I don't know. It's just, I don't know what their plan is, but this is just speculation. So that's one way to look at it. Another thing I want to talk about is the fact that Mr. Blue Eyes is something known as a high rider. Now, what is a high rider? It is defined as someone who has worked in space their whole life or was born in space. So, I think the Earth person is called Earth Riders, or just high rider in space because it's super high. Okay, so you guys get it. Anyways, why do I think this matters? Well, during the Fourth Corpo War, there was something known as a 7-hour war. Okay? And it was a very quick war. Obviously, it was 7 hours. It's less than your shift. But during this period, what happened was high riders, so workers, these guys were the working force for the ESA to create all their space stations at the time. But, as per usual with megacorps, they do caca treating their people. So what happened was they felt oppressed. They felt like they had a little freedom. So just terrible working conditions. So what did the high riders do? They said, hey, let's band together and let's go get ourselves a few space stations. And at this point in the war, the 7-hour war, they were able to get O'Neill 2, I believe, and I forgot the name of the other one, but they did end up getting 2 space stations. So And of course, the ESA, like, I believe they wanted to retaliate, but they couldn't because during, again, the Fourth Corporal War, everyone was like, oh my God, Militech and Arasaka is going to nuke the entire planet. So they were just trying to prioritize. Like, they couldn't send the appropriate assets up into space to stop this coup. So they kind of just said, okay, you guys get those 2 space stations. Let's end it at that. Peace. Now, just like anything, there could be extremist groups within, certain parties. And in this case, it could be possible that Mr. Blue Eyes is some sort of descendant or some sort of like great-great-grandson of a person who felt strongly that the Confederation, the High Rider Confederation, should get more. And there we go. Now, that's a very simple plot as to why Mr. Blue Eyes now wants to get the Crystal Palace, which again is owned by the ESA. Very simple plot that I've kind of come up with. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below. Now, of course, let's give it a cyberpunk twist. Let's say that that plan is still a thing, that, it looks like Mr. Blue Eyes is working for the High Rider Confederation extremist party, and they want to attack the Crystal Palace to, in order to take that for themselves. Now, if Mr. Blue Eyes is a rogue AI, and we think back to all the possibilities and all the things that he could be doing, which is, taking over the Paralysis couple, the whole Night Corp thing. So it looks like if a rogue AI was smart enough, it looks like they're triggering like a war. Whether it be with Night Corp versus another megacorp, the High Rider Confederation versus the ESA, and again, taking control of the possible new mayor of Night City. All of these things that look like they're pieces being put in place by a rogue AI. Because what if their plan here is to kind of all of a sudden attack, have Night Corp do something drastic, have the High Rider Confederation try to take over the Crystal Palace, and have the Paralysis couple do something crazy within Night City. If they trigger all of these events, okay, I think this makes everyone's guard, this makes everyone's guard lower, because now they're prioritizing certain things. They're like, oh my God, Night Corp has attacked Militech. Let's stop that. Or, oh my God, the High Rider Confederation has attacked the Crystal Palace. We need to prioritize that. And now we have this crazy Paralysis mayor guy who's trying to do certain things. We need to stop that. So with all of that happening, they then decide to destroy the Black Wall, or they then decide to hack all the systems they can, kind of unleashing everything, every rogue AI, every Rabbit, Lilith, all of those stuff into play. Now, that's more of a cyberpunk ending in my opinion. That kind of makes it more like, oh yeah, that sounds like something that, a rogue AI would do, where they're plotting and planning all these things and putting all these stuff into place. That way, when it's time to initiate something, they can go ahead and do it. Another side note here, and it kind of made me think that this is definitely a possibility, is that if Mr. Blue Eyes, and I still believe he is a rogue AI, really wanted to, he could do something what Alt did, which was destroy, I don't know what satellite it was, the Jinjuri, and they destroy that satellite to allow V, Rogue, and what's his name, Shwama, to get close to the Arasaka Tower, right? If he really wanted to, I think he's powerful enough to take over a little bit of the Crystal Palace and then make a mess himself. But what that does is it kind of shows his hand. It's like, oh my God, there's clearly a rogue AI out here doing something, and that would foil and ruin everything they have set up. Whereas if they get someone like V, who is now the legend of Night City, to do it for them, they have somebody that is expendable. They can just throw him to the side or throw her to the side and then initiate their plan that way. But yeah, that is it for this video. I know this one relies heavily on speculation and like different ideas, but based on what I see, this is plausible. Mr. Blue Eyes being a rogue AI inside of a body of a High Rider, so he makes it look like, oh, this is a High Rider thing. He makes it look like it's not really him, and then of course they initiate the actual plan and take over the world, and goodbye human beings and welcome the Matrix. So that's something that I think is, you know, an angle that could be taken. Honestly, at this point, I feel like it's a good story for a DLC. I don't know if they're gonna make it at this point, but yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. I'm enjoying making these kind of like borderline controversial videos and theory vids, because I like the conversation. I like talking to you guys and seeing what you guys think about certain things. So leave all of that stuff in the comment section down below and let's talk about it. If you have not subscribed, of course, consider subscribing for more lore videos, walkthroughs, playthroughs, whatever. I'll see you Chumbas in the next one. Bye.